Very briefly, going to touch on the timeline here. Just wanted to give you the littlest hint of some of the historical context. You can read this more in the, downloading the slides here, but I just wanted to point out that psilocybin containing mushrooms have been used by humans for at least 3,000 years. Some people say longer. There's some very interesting cave art out of Africa. There's even some suggestions that humans have been using psilocybin mushrooms before there were Homo sapiens. Previous versions of humanity perhaps were eating these mushrooms. I don't know if there's ever going to be a way to prove or disprove that hypothesis, but we can definitively say somewhere around 1000 BCE in Guatemala, we have these ritual mushroom stones. And there's a long history, and it continues to this day. The Maya, the indigenous people of Guatemala, they didn't disappear. They weren't entirely wiped out. They exist today, and they continue to have ceremonial relationships with mushrooms to this day. So at least 3,000 years of history with psilocybin, up to randomized clinical trials that have been happening in the 2000s. Ketamine, comparatively, has just been around for the blink of an eye. It was first synthesized in 1962. Not on the slides, but it was really popularized in 1970 during the Vietnam War. It was used in combat quite a bit as an anesthetic agent. You might hear, if you don't know anything else about ketamine, you might go, oh, isn't that like a horse tranquilizer? And it is. It's an animal tranquilizer. It's also one of the safest and most prevalent human anesthetics that we have. It's been approved for use in infants as early as 6 months old, all the way through elders. It's used in emergency departments. It's used in the battlefield. And yes, it's used in veterinary medicine. And so is Prozac. Prozac is given to cats and dogs. So if you were to say like, oh, Prozac, isn't that an animal antidepressant? Well, it is, but you're missing the point. So ketamine, yes, it's a horse tranquilizer, and it's also a very safe and well-documented anesthetic agent. It's also been used to assist psychotherapy, at least since the 70s, but that was in Soviet Russia. And us, patriotic capitalist Americans, we either didn't know about the Soviet research or we didn't care. We didn't want to pay any attention to what was going on there. So we didn't really pay much attention to that until 2000. The lab next to the lab where I used to work first discovered the rapid-acting antidepressant effects of ketamine in the year 2000, and there's just been tremendous research ever since. MDMA, kind of in the middle between 3,000 years ago and the 1960s, MDMA was first synthesized in 1912, but it was just a byproduct. No one ever intended MDMA to be used for anything. In the early 70s, maybe as early as 1970, it began to be used both in therapy and in the club scene. Dr. Sasha Shulgin and Dr. Leo Zeff are two of the biggest names in the MDMA history. Shulgin was a chemist who synthesized MDMA. He gave it to a psychiatrist, Dr. Zeff, and Dr. Zeff began incorporating it into his psychotherapy practice. It's been estimated that he trained over around 4,000 therapists in an early version of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, both when it was legal and after it was outlawed. Anyone who does MDMA-assisted therapy today in 2023, they're using basically a modified protocol of what Zeff came up with over the decades. And he was just figuring this out by trial and error over years and years of practice. And that's kind of the received wisdom of what the clinical trials are doing right now. Of course, it was outlawed in 1986, and now we have clinical trials that are going on, and it'll probably be rescheduled soon.